Morning. I'm Derek Fildebrandt, publisher of the Western Standard. It's almost 9:40 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, 8:40 a.m. Pacific Time in Tumbler Ridge, BC. You're watching right now because you've all heard the news. Some of you woke up to it. Some of you saw it developing in the evening yesterday. It's not often we have things like this happen in our country, but it's shattering news, and it's getting attention around the world right now. So I want to talk with everyone about what we know, how we know it, and very importantly, what we know that most of the media will not report, and why they will not report it. So I won't spend too much information on what you all know. Tumbler Ridge, BC, small community, around 2,500 people, northeast BC. It's about just a little over 2 hours west of Grand Prairie in Alberta. Small little town. And they've been rocked by a mass shooting. We know that there are 9 people confirmed dead, 25 people confirmed injured. The mother of the shooter is dead, and the little brother of the shooter is dead. Presumably, although I can't confirm, the other 7 confirmed dead are teachers or students at the local high school. And another 25 injured. My best guess would be that they're also from the school. The crime was committed, as far as we know, with a shotgun. Standard shotgun. I can't tell you what gauge, but these things are normally a 12 gauge, maybe a 14, but standard shotgun as far as we know. So this whole thing, I'll just preface this off the start. This is live, so maybe I'll say something insensitive. I'm going to try to stick to the facts. I'm going to try to stick to sober, cold analysis. But yeah, it's live, so maybe I say something insensitive. So forgive me if I do. But the story is of just such immense, tragic proportions, and I'm extremely disturbed by some of the actions of the police and the mainstream legacy media right now in covering this, that we've just got to get into it, and we've got to be tough about it. So an alert went out. I don't know if we have the alert to bring up here, studio, but an alert went out, an emergency alert went out on people's phones. You've all gotten these things. It's, weather warning, could be an Amber Alert, but an alert went out to people in the Tumbler Ridge area, and said that there was a woman in a dress on the loose shooting people, and people should shelter in place. A woman in a dress. Okay, that's interesting. But we have a clip from the RCMP. It's a very, very short clip where they're explaining what happened, and the RCMP use a word I've never heard in my life. Okay, so here's the emergency alert that went around. Tumbler Ridge alert, surrounding area. Active shooter alert issued by Tumbler Ridge RCMP. People are asked to stay inside and shelter in place. Lock your doors. Don't leave. Suspect is described as a female in a dress with brown hair. Shelter in place. Okay, so people in Tumbler Ridge are looking for a woman. Now, maybe that is just as the crisis is going on. Maybe that's just the information the police have at the time in the crisis. So we can maybe write that off as just, this is what they know. And it was panicked, information's scant, and coming in fast and furious. So, we can be a bit forgiving there. But in the press conference, soon after the shooting, an RCMP officer, let's just play that quick. All right, let's get it up on screen here. This is the RCMP quickly after the shooting. Let's play it.
We're still trying to determine a lot about the shooter at this stage right now. We believe we've been able to identify the shooter, but for privacy reasons and obviously for the conduct of the investigation, we're not releasing that information at that time until we're assured that we've connected with the appropriate people and identified things.
Oh, there's another one I'm looking for. The RCMP identify the shooter as a, quote, gun person. Do we have that video?
Yes.
Gun person? Okay, let's play that one. Let's play gun person video. Yeah.
The gun person.
Okay. And then
Yeah.
separately, do you know the gun person's relationship to
That includes the deceased gun person.
Okay. And then separately, do you know the gun person's relationship to
That includes the deceased gun person.
Okay. And then separately, do you know the gun person's relationship to
Okay.
That includes the deceased gun person.
Okay. Gun person. Now that's a language. So that is a term that I did not know existed in the English language until yesterday evening. Gun person. I've heard of the lone gunman, or there were several gunmen. We don't even really say the word gun woman. Maybe a large measure because women don't tend to do this kind of thing in very significant numbers. Credit to the female half of the species that women just don't seem to do crazy mass murderous things like this. But I've never heard the term gun person. So described in the emergency alert also as a female in a dress with brown hair. And the police also said they have no motive, and they have no idea where to start looking for a motive. Okay, so as this is developing yesterday, I got on the phone with some of our core leadership in the newsroom here, and some of our reporters. We had Dave Naylor, who leads our newsroom behind me here. Our main BC reporter, Jared Yager. We brought in some extra hands, like our Saskatchewan reporter, Chris Oldcorn. Very quickly, we realized this doesn't add up. Very quickly. At least it likely doesn't add up. For a simple reason. Women don't do mass shootings. They don't. There are going to be some exceptions, but it is a very, very small number. Based on the research I've done, only around 2% of mass school shootings are regular women. 2%. So they happen, but they are exceedingly rare. No one would place a bet that, okay, you hear a school shooting happens, make a quick, maybe prejudicial guess on who it is. No one says it was probably a woman. No one would bet on that. That is a bad bet. Women, to their credit, don't, or females, if we're talking schools, so girls, young women, they don't do this. And the RCMP are saying it's a woman. Well, that raises a big question. And then they start using weasel words like gun person, or inventing weasel words like gun person. So this obviously raises the pretty obvious question. You know where I'm going with this, and I don't want to make this something it's not, but this is an obvious question. So mass school shootings are conducted mostly by males identifying as females, or sometimes females identifying as males, like happened not very long ago in Nashville, where a Christian school was shot up. It's not a very big percentage. It's hardly even statistically relevant, the number of mass school shootings committed by regular females. They just don't do it generally. So just 2% are regular females. So this is fun. I asked Grok. We got to be careful how much we trust AI. And then I use AI. It's good shorthand for things. But this is an example. Let's bring up the screenshot of what I asked Grok. I asked, short answer only, what is the probability that the mass shooter in Tumbler Ridge, BC is an actual biological woman? Grok said near 100% effectively certain. Official police emergency alert and multiple reports like The Guardian, CBC, Wikipedia, Al Jazeera describe the shooter as female, woman in dress with brown hair. No credible sources indicate transgender status or that the person is biologically male. Claims otherwise appear to be unsubstantiated speculation or misinformation on social media. I remember when Grok used to be cool. Grok used to not give a shit. Someone's obviously tampered with the Grok's algorithm, Grok's computing power, or however it is. So Grok says 100%. It is effectively certain. I said, bullshit. It just doesn't match up. 2% of mass school shootings are committed by women, and this is going to be in the 2%. It's possible, but I'm not going to bet on it. So we had to answer an obvious question, and we did. The Western Standard has, we're the Western Standard. We have a lot of contacts in Western Canada. That's our beat. So we quickly reached out to just people we know in the area, particularly around Grand Prairie, and we're able to quickly develop some on-the-ground sources. There was a lot coming out on social media. Some of it turned out to be credible. Some of it turned out to be bullshit. There was one poor person, a transgendered person, who was misidentified. Their picture put all over X and other social media platforms last night, identifying that person as the shooter, because everybody kind of jumped to the conclusion, and it turns out correctly that this was probably a trans person, and a lot of people misidentified the person. I'm not going to put the picture up. This is a young person who's obviously already having a hard time with life, and now having probably a much harder time now that a ton of people have seen their face incorrectly identified as the shooter. I can't imagine what that person's going through. But we didn't fall for it. We saw a lot of stuff going around on social media. Some of that provided leads, but that's not substantiated information. It was our job as a news company, as a publication, to get confirmation. And so we worked with sources on the ground, and we did confirm who it was. We could put up the correct picture here. The Western Standard confirmed the identity of the shooter as Jesse Strang, confirmed by let's get the picture of Jesse Strang up. Jesse Strang, confirmed by multiple sources, a biological male, teenager, began transitioning from a male to a female, 15 to 17 years old, best we can tell. And as best we can tell, Jesse is the shooter's real name. I guess Jesse could be both a male and female name, so did not change the name. So that's as best as we can tell. That's not 100%, but that's as best as we can tell. We've identified the shooter. This is the shooter right here. You're not going to get it really anywhere else. You're going to see some of this on social media. But social media, I mean, it's often the first source of things, and social media has helped to identify, but they often get it wrong as well. One other independent media, Juno News, did get it. Western Standard was the first to have it, with multiple confirmed sources that this was the individual. One of those sources is not the RCMP. The RCMP is not confirming who the shooter was. They're saying it's because they have to notify next of kin. Well, guess what? The shooter shot his next of kin. The shooter shot his mother and little brother. He shot his next of kin. The RCMP says they're waiting on notifying next of kin. The next of kin is murdered. The RCMP is just not really wanting to say why. That's what's happening here. The legacy media. As of when I checked right before coming on the air, as of 9:30 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, 8:30 a.m. local time in British Columbia, not a single legacy media outlet in Canada or on the planet have reported on the identity of the shooter. They're still just going with the official story from the RCMP. A woman in a dress with brown hair. That's it. Woman in a dress with brown hair. Or gun person. Gun person, that new word that the RCMP invented yesterday. I got to feel a little bit bad for the RCMP communications officer who had to do this. There's like all sorts of federal law and guidelines on how you're supposed to identify people, not misgendering them, etc. The poor RCMP comms officer, I don't want to beat up on him. He's just following the rules, the dumb rules that are written for him. He's probably given this situation. It comes on his lap, and they're like, all right, you have to write a press release. And he's just shit. They know it's bullshit, and they have to say it anyway. So the RCMP are not telling the truth here. They're intentionally obfuscating, but obfuscating is official federal government policy here to not misgender anyone. So it's not all his fault. But the legacy media is under no obligation to report only what the government says, the government's official bullshit line. They're under no obligation. They know. They've seen what we've written. I know tons of people in the legacy media. They see that the Western Standard's out there. They see all the stuff on social media, some of it confirmed, some of it not confirmed, some of it incorrect. But we've done our work. We've verified. We have sources on the ground right now in Tumbler Ridge. We have a freelancer. We're probably one of the only media on the planet with someone we've hired on the ground in Tumbler Ridge. We have reporters driving through the bush right now to Tumbler Ridge. We've done our homework. We know who this person is. We know what's going on. Everybody in Tumbler Ridge knows what's going on. I didn't get a single call. None of my reporters in the newsroom behind me or our guys in BC or Edmonton, none of them, best I know, got any calls or texts or DMs from anyone in the legacy media saying, hey, could you give me more information about these sources, or could I possibly talk to them anonymously to confirm what you know? We haven't gotten a single call. It's like they're not even interested. They don't want to know. Because if they know, they ostensibly have to update their stories. They have to report on it. They haven't even called us asking, hey, how credible is this source? Could we talk to them? Could we don't want to take your word for it, Western Standard, but can we talk to your sources? Could you talk to your sources and ask if they're willing to talk to us so we can independently verify it? We haven't gotten a single phone call, not a single text, not a single DM. The mainstream media here is utterly uninterested in this critical part of the story. Who is the shooter? Like when this kind of thing happens, what do you want to know? Who are the victims? Who is the suspect? The suspect's dead. I guess we use the term suspect. Who are the victims? Who is the suspect? Why? How? Who, what, why, where, how? Basic parts of any story. This is the big who. This is the big who. And they're not interested. They're just not interested. CBC, Calgary Herald, Vancouver Sun, CTV, Global, any of you, give me a call. Or if you're a reporter watching right now, drop it in the DMs. I'll take, or drop it in the comments. I'll get back to you. I'll ask our sources there if they're willing to talk to you. You don't have to cite the Western Standard as your source if you don't want to. Maybe you're a little embarrassed, but you can go confirm it for yourselves. I'll put you in touch with some sources right now. I'll do it. As soon as I'm off the air here, I'll put you in touch. Uninterested. Nothing. It was very obvious. This is not a woman. This was obviously not a woman based on probability. As I said, there's a roughly 2% chance based on history over the last decade this could have been a woman. An actual regular old-fashioned woman or girl, because it's a school. 2% chance. So we had an instant suspicion that this might not be all it's stroked out to be. So the percentage of, this is rough math. I'm going to update it a bit more, but my rough math here. Percentage of mass school shootings in North America committed by transgendered people over the last decade, so 2016, 2026. Of the shooters, approximately 20 to 25% have been transgendered. 2% are just women. 2%. 20 to 25% are transgendered. So North American school shootings over the last decade. So based on percentage of the population, here is how much more likely or less likely each of these four groups, male, female, trans male, trans female, are. Here's how likely or less likely they are to commit a mass school shooting. Rough math. I'm gonna update this as we go. I want to get harder numbers. There's different ways to measure things, but here's what I got. Males, regular males, males who think they're males, or males who know they're males, are 1.4 times more likely than the average person to commit a mass school shooting. Males, 1.4 times more likely than the average person. Females, 0.1 times more likely, or less likely. Like, females are way less likely to commit a mass school shooting. It pretty much doesn't happen. Again, a credit to the female side of our species. Males, 1.4 times more likely, so a bit more likely than the average person. And that's because females are so much less likely to do it. 0.1 times. Biological females identifying as males, so biological females, people born a female who identify as a male, are 18 times more likely. 18 times more likely to commit a mass school shooting over the last decade in North America. You thought that was bad. Biological males who identify as females are 52 times more likely to commit a mass school shooting in North America over the last decade. 52 times. Again, so regular male. All right, let's start at the good end. Regular female, 0.1 times more likely. So they're way, way less likely. So just so you understand, if it says 1 times as likely, means purely average. So 0.1 times is way less likely. Females are way less likely to commit a mass school shooting. Males are 1.4 times more likely to commit a mass school shooting. Biological females who identify as males are 18 times more likely to commit a mass school shooting. And biological males who identify as a female are 52 times more likely to commit a mass school shooting. 52 times. So, the RCMP, the legacy media, they would have us believe that a regular female who's 0.1 times more likely to commit a mass school shooting did this, then what we know, which is, and the actual shooter, a biological male identifying as a female, who is 52 times more likely. Now, every situation's unique. They're individuals. But just based on the math, and then quickly the weasel words used by the RCMP and the media, gun person. Well, it was pretty quick. We were going to have to not take their word for it. We were going to have to dig into this a little bit. So, now this does not mean that biological males identifying as females or biological females identifying as males are all shooters. Far from the truth. Far from the case. It also doesn't mean males are all likely to be school shooters. They're more likely than females. That doesn't mean we should treat these people with disrespect, treat them as anything less than dignified fellow men and women. Not meaning the pun. But it is a statistically relevant number. Females are 0.1 times more likely. Biological males identifying as females are 52 times more likely. That is a statistically relevant figure. It is extremely statistically relevant. So we have to, I do, when this kind of thing happens, whenever there's a tragedy, everybody kind of quietly, in a very dark voice, I'm going to admit this out loud. Everyone says, "Ooh, I hope that wasn't my group. I hope that wasn't my group because I'm going to kind of residually get blamed for it. Some bad hate attack happens. People are like, oh, I hope it wasn't like a white right-wing guy because it's going to blow back on us. We're going to get shit for it. People feel that. Everyone, you know, in the comments who's like, it's racist and blah, blah, blah. Fuck off. You feel that. You don't want it to be someone who, when this kind of tragedy happens, you don't want it to be your group. Because it blows back on you, and you kind of residually as a group take shit for it. And I think, you know, I know a reasonable number of trans people who I can't imagine would ever do anything like this. You know, they're good people, and they got to be feeling that right now. You know, they got to be feeling, oh, I'm going to take blowback as a group because of what this monster did. So we should have some empathy for that right now. And I don't mean to be adding to it here. What I'm saying is probably not entirely helpful to that, but I'm more concerned with the facts and the real story here than I am with sensitivities. I am sensitive to what's happening, and I don't want to hurt that, but I'm more concerned with the facts right now than those sensitivities. So this is clearly a real issue. Let me just list off, just from the last few years, some similar shootings. February 14th, 2018, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida, 17 killed, 17 injured. These are trans shooters. 17 killed, 17 injured. May 18th, 2028, Santa Fe High School, Texas, 10 killed, 13 injured. May 18th, 2019, STEM High School, Highlands Ranch in Colorado, 1 killed, 8 injured. November 30th, 2021, Oxford High School, Michigan, 4 killed, 7 injured. May 24th, 2022, Robb Elementary School, Uvalde, Texas, 21 killed, 17 injured. Covenant High School, March 27, 2023, Covenant High School, Nashville, Tennessee, 6 killed, 1 injured. September 4th, 2024, Appalachia High School, Georgia, 4 killed, 9 injured. August 27th, 2025, Annunciation Catholic School, Minneapolis, 3 killed, 30 injured during a mass at the school. January 22nd, 2019, Saugus High School, 2 killed, 3 injured. November 30th, 2021, Perry High School, Iowa, 2 killed, 6 injured. December 16th, 2024, Abundant Life Christian School, Wisconsin, 3 killed, 6 injured. And now, yesterday, February 10th, 2026, Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia. 9 confirmed dead, at least 25 confirmed injured. At least 2 of those are family members, the shooter's mother, little brother, and then presumably people at the school, students or teachers, we don't yet know. And then similar among the injured, probably mostly around the school, if not entirely. We don't know that yet. We need to talk about this. No group is responsible for the actions of an individual. Ever. Doesn't work like that. Every man and woman is created by God as an individual, and only an individual is responsible for that person's crimes, not other people in their family, in their tribe, in their nation, in whatever group attribute they have. No one else is responsible. Period. They're responsible. But we have to look for warning signs where there might be something. You know, if you're concerned about terrorism from a certain ideology, that ideology is going to have people with some group characteristics in common. So you look into that group. You don't persecute people. You don't hurt people. You don't harm them in any way as a group. But you look at it. You try to identify problems. When we're talking about, radical Islamic terrorism, we try to work with people in the Muslim community to try and identify people who are potentially going to be radicalized or who are radicalized, and we try to de-radicalize them. You don't try to de-radicalize someone from radical Islam if they're not in Islam, if they're not a Muslim. That's obvious. And that means it's fine to be a Muslim. It's perfectly fine. No problem with it. Not my beef. But there's a group attribute there that we usefully identify to try and solve a problem. And there is a problem here. It's like pretending that there isn't anymore. It's a problem. When biological males who identify as female are 52 times more likely than the average student to commit a mass shooting, there's a problem. When biological females who identify as male are 18 times more likely to commit a mass school shooting as the average student, there's a problem. And I'm sick of pretending that there's not. You know, that this is all just random. It's just random. No. It's not random. It's very statistically relevant. And we got to stop pretending that it's not. As I said, everybody always, I do kind of hate the cop-out, like, well, I've got friends in X group, therefore I can't be prejudiced against that group. That's a cop-out, I mean, I kind of hate saying that. I don't mean it as a cop-out to hedge my bets that, like, hey, I can't be homophobic because I got gay friends. That's a cop-out. That's a cop-out. But I do know a reason, not a ton, but I know a reasonable number of trans folks. And, I don't know, they're not my friends, but they're perfectly decent folks. And that doesn't mean I don't pretend, that these trans people are actually women. I don't pretend that they are. I show them courtesy. I show them respect. If I'll even call them she as a courtesy, because I think I'm most of the time, at least, a fairly nice guy. I think. That's just the human decent thing to do. But I don't pretend that they're actually a woman capable of birthing children, that kind of thing. Because I would be furthering a delusion that is just not true, not reality. And we have laws in Canada under the Human Rights Act that make it illegal, punishable by law, to even for a psychologist to say to someone, maybe you're not a woman. You were born a man. Maybe you're just a man. Maybe this is just kind of in your head. Maybe this is a phase. Maybe you've just got this well-known condition we've identified for a very long time called gender dysphoria, that you're just uncomfortable in your natural born body. We've always had that. But for most of human history, we didn't engage in the delusion. We didn't engage in confirming people's gender dysphoria. We might tolerate them. It's like, oh, this is weird, but yeah, maybe they'll grow out of it. And most people do. Most people do. But it's illegal for even a psychologist. They'll have their license revoked, and they'll face serious penalties under the law, under federal law, and in some cases provincial law. They'll face serious penalties for saying, no, you're deluding yourself. Instead, they are expected to simply confirm the delusion. And this exacerbates one of many mental health crises that we have in Western society. We're making it worse. We can only speculate on the motive of this shooter, so I won't. We don't know enough yet, but we know that males who identify as females, trans females, are 52 times, not 52%, 52 times more likely to commit mass school shootings than the average student. So maybe there's a risk here, and confirming people's delusions, mental illnesses. Maybe this is not innocent. Maybe this is not just all good fun and innocent and compassionate. This is suicidal compassion, suicidal empathy. We are taking someone who is not well and needs compassion, who needs help, who needs to be maybe brought back into reality a bit, and we are smothering them. We are hugging them to smother them with a faux empathy that makes it worse. And we're hurting them. And in some cases, by confirming this delusion, we're pushing them further down the path of mental illness. And sometimes, in the most extreme circumstances, we get this. I don't know. Was this person being picked on in school? I don't know. Speculation. But there's always been bullies in school. As long as there's been children, there have been bullies. Most of the time, we didn't do this. And to be fair, school shootings did not start with the trans fad. Like I was in high school when Columbine happened. We all remember that. And people are still trying to piece together what the hell happened there. You know, was it listening to too much Marilyn Manson, or was it bullying? I don't know. I've never made good sense of what happened there. These things have happened long before it became fashionable to start transitioning children. So, put that canard to rest, that this is all a trans thing. It's not. But trans people are, between biological males and females, 52 times and 18 times respectively more likely to do it. That is extremely statistically relevant. And we're just closing our eyes to all of it. We're just closing our eyes, pretending this is not happening. So we have to learn more about the circumstances of what happened. But it seems like more than just there was a bully at school. They shot up the whole damn school. The shooter murdered his own mother, murdered his own little brother. Let's, you know what? I'm going to pull something up. This is the dumbest take I have seen on the internet here. I'm going to send it to studio here to pull up on the screen. You got to see this. This is a real freaking piece of work. I'm going to send a screenshot to studio, pull it up. This guy should not be allowed to vote. He's that dumb. This guy portrays himself as some kind of conservative. I'm going to send it by text to studio here. And get it up on the screen as soon as you can. Mark Slapinski. This guy, let's see. Mark Slapinski, he describes himself as Canadian journalist providing news and analysis on federal politics, regularly says the most influential guy in Canada, like one of the most influential conservatives of all time. His big thing is he tries to portray himself as some kind of highbrow conservative. He dislikes populists, anti-establishment, Western nationalism, whatever. I mean, that's all his thing. But let me know. Are we able to get it up on the screen here? Okay, he's going to try and get up on the screen. But here's his hot take. If the shooter of today's mass shooting in Canada turns out to be trans, I blame Maple Mega. These people have promoted hatred against this tiny minority of people, pushing them to their breaking point. Let me read that again. If the shooter of today's mass shooting in Canada turns out to be trans, I blame Maple Mega. These people have promoted hatred against this tiny minority of people, pushing them to their breaking point. So, And I just said, here he is. Here he is. I just said, trans people are not responsible for the actions of one trans shooter. That is not the way we do things in a civilized country. Groups are not responsible for what someone from their group does. If some right-wing, white, hard, Alberta nationalist goes out and shoots someone for whatever warped purpose they have in their mind, I shouldn't wear that. No one else who shares these group characteristics should share any responsibility for that. Now, if people who share these group characteristics are regularly doing it in numbers far out of proportion to themselves, then it's fair to ask questions about why. What's behind it? Like, what's causing these white, right-wing Alberta nationalists to go out and start killing people? It'd be fair to ask why and what we should do about that, because that's not a good thing. Perhaps there's some reason we need to get to the bottom of it. But no one who shares these group characteristics is in any way ever responsible. That goes for people who share my group characteristics, and it goes for trans people. No other trans person in the world, no person, period, is responsible for this shooting except for Jesse Strang. Jesse Strang is responsible for Jesse Strang, for his actions. Now, perhaps we bear some, overall as a society, we bear some collective responsibility for enabling this kind of thing, perhaps. That doesn't mean anybody is guilty of anything. No one's done anything wrong. Most people who would enable this, in their hearts, they think they're doing a good thing. We have to try and remember that about people we disagree with. Extremely few people, like, if you're not a sociopath, you don't intentionally do the wrong thing. You think what you're doing is the right thing. That's human nature, except for sociopaths. So no one's responsible. No one's responsible for Jesse Strang except for Jesse Strang. But here's this hot take. Let's put this scumbag back up on the screen. Let's put this scumbag back up. Mark Slapinski. If the shooter of today's mass shooting in Canada turns out to be trans, I blame Maple Mega. These people have promoted hatred against this tiny minority of people, pushing them to their breaking point. So Jesse Strang is not responsible. Trans people are not responsible. I would agree with that. Trans people are not responsible as a group. That's a total misreading of the situation. I think it goes against our values as a civilization. We don't blame groups for individuals. But this guy not only doesn't blame the group from which the shooter's from, he blames the group that he identifies as not liking him. So trans people are not responsible. The shooter himself is not responsible. You know who's responsible? People who are against trans ideology, gender ideology. They're responsible. Probably most of you watching, normal people who understand this madness, you are responsible. You made this guy shoot these people. And this Mark Slapinski isn't passing himself off as some idiot professor on a campus somewhere. He's not passing himself off as some purple-haired Antifa nutter. He passes himself off as a conservative influencer. He mostly just repeats bland, mealy-mouthed talking points of the Conservative Party of Canada. Here's the greatest ever. The Conservatives are awesome. And if it's ever any criticism, it's like, they better not get too populist. They better not get too anti-establishment here, too Maple Mega. Okay, whatever. There's conservatives like that. That's fine. That's a reasonable take. This is not. This is horseshit. This is blaming a group for the actions of an individual. And he doesn't even get it in the ballpark. He's not even blaming the group from which the shooter came from, which would be wrong in and of itself. He blames people who don't share in this person's delusion. I've never given this guy any attention because he's a chode. This guy is a total D-bag. I ignore him. It just got like the most boring milquetoast takes you can imagine. He has nothing interesting to say. It's like a shittier version of a Conservative Party press release. This is the first interesting thing I've ever seen this guy say. And it is the dumbest thing I've seen on the internet all day. I'm sure there are even dumber takes out there. But this guy passes himself off as one of the most influential conservatives in Canada. I'm influential. Everybody listens to me. I'm important. Well, you heard it there. Anyway, just as you should not blame every trans person for the actions of Jesse... sorry, I'm missing the name here. Jesse Strang. Just so you don't blame every trans person for the actions of Jesse Strang. Don't blame every conservative for the moronic take of Mark Slapinski. He'll slink back into his parents' basement soon, I'm sure. So enough of him. So anyway, look, I want to caution people. There's a lot of stuff flowing around on X, on Reddit, Facebook. There's a lot of stuff flowing around. And we've, my team of journalists have been using a lot of this as leads to try and, okay, where can we follow here? They provide leads, starting places. And we've got real professional journalists doing this. So just be cautious what you see out there. A lot of it has turned out to be correct leads that have led us to be able to confirm things independently. But a lot of it's bullshit too. A lot of it is just, and a lot of these things, a lot of people have been out there. And I'm not going to name names because I like some of the people, but I mean, kind of shame on them for this. Some people have been out saying, I confirmed the shooter was trans. They did not confirm it. They just saw stuff on social media and it was not confirmed. They just wanted to be the first one to say it. And it was kind of, I don't know how to say this without getting in trouble, but I'll say it. Based on the math, the RCMP say it's a woman. That is statistically highly improbable. 2% chance that it's an actual woman. So they took a calculated bet, said, well, okay, so it's 98% likely actually a guy in a dress. So they took a pretty good bet. If you're at the casino, 98% is pretty damn good. They took the bet. So they get to look smart. Like, hey, I have some insight. I was able to do this journalism faster than anyone else. So people are just kind of taking a calculated bet. And, they're not professional journalists. So if they're wrong, they delete the tweet. No one really remembers it. It's low risk for them, high reward. So just be cautious of that. There's a lot out there. People who say, I confirmed it. And we're ultimately correct. They didn't actually confirm it. They just took a bet that they were pretty confident and ultimately correct would turn out well for them. That's not journalism. And I'm not in the business saying this guy's a journalist, this guy's not. It's a gray area. It's a spectrum of what is journalism. So I don't want to be like a CBC reporter snooty about it. Like, you don't have my credentials. You don't have my badge. You're not a part of our journalist club. I'm not in the business of doing that. I think everybody should try to be a journalist in their own way. But just be cautious of those who came out and said, it's a trans shooter. I've got it confirmed. And they don't provide any actual evidence. They didn't confirm it. They took a calculated bet that was high risk, low risk, high reward, and they were correct. We obviously saw that. We understand the basic statistics of this. And so we investigated because we wanted to actually confirm it. That's what we did. We had journalists working on this late into the wee hours of the morning here, trying to confirm this. And we did. And we were the first to do it. But that was actual journalism confirming it. And so there's a lot of bullshit out there, especially including, be cautious of the pictures you share. I'm not going to put the picture up here, but there is a picture of a trans kid, I believe from Ontario. I mean, kind of a pudgy kid, not very convincing as a female. And people have shared this on X, shared it on Reddit. That person is not the shooter. And that person's life was probably already difficult enough as it is. as a kid with gender dysphoria. Like that's a tough hand to be dealt in life. That's tough. And this person's life has just been made all the tougher with, they're probably getting messages from their friends like, did you shoot up the school in BC? Like, I can't imagine the hell that kid's going through. So just be cautious of what you share. There's a lot of, I'm not sure it's intentional disinformation. I think it's, for the most part, probably innocent people just found this and they heard it's true and then they're sharing it. Someone sees them and they're sharing it. It's all innocent enough. But like this incorrect information like that can really hurt real people. So don't be a part of the problem. Don't do something that discredits the real journalism that we're trying to do here. If you see something, ask questions. Send it. If anyone on here thinks they have new information on this that we haven't already confirmed, please send it to us. Send it news@westernstandard.news. That's our news tip line. News@westernstandard.news. Send it to us. Drop it in the comments. I'll take a look. But don't push something that we haven't verified yet, because real people get hurt when people get this wrong. And there's a race in media to get this right, except with the legacy media. They're not racing at all to get this. They don't want this story. They're uncomfortable with it. Gives them the heebie-jeebies. But at least among the independent media, there's a race to get this story first. But you got to get it right. You got to have credible, multiple sources on something like that. And that's what we're doing. Here, we're going to throw the email up right here. Right, send your news tips on this. You got any news tips? Don't send us stuff we already got. But if you've got anything new to add to it, news@westernstandard.news. Send us an email. We got staff who are going to go through it. That's a good way to do this. And feel free to do investigation yourself. Citizen journalism. As I said, I don't like to draw the line to who's a journalist and who's not. Not my job. At some point, people are not a journalist, and at some point they are, but it's no magic. There's no magic point of conception. When did journalism begin? I don't know. Was it at conception? I don't know. I don't know when journalism begins. I might know where it ends, but I don't know where it begins. So, research, investigate this yourself. You can contribute to this. That's what's happening with the Epstein files. It's citizen journalists. The legacy media is not actually doing that much. It's regular guys, regular girls going through this shit. That's how we're getting to the bottom of like the biggest story of the last possibly 100 years, the Epstein files. One of the biggest stories of all time. We're just scratching the surface of it, but it's citizen journalists doing this. So I encourage you guys to go out, investigate this, and share it with us, because then we can help verify it. And we can bring it together with other information that we have, that we maybe, most of the time, we don't publish most of the stuff we have, because it might not be sufficiently corroborated and proven and verified. We've got a process for this stuff. And most media do, even the ones we don't like. They've got some standards too. So share it with us. We can work together. But just be cautious about sharing things that are not yet verified, because you could really ruin an innocent person's life, like this poor trans kid in Ontario. Everybody thinking they're a mass murderer now. Could you imagine the hell? Can you imagine the hell of that? High school seems tough enough at the time, even if you're just a, lack of a better term, a normal kid. Imagine this. I pray for this kid. Seriously. This kid is going to need people's support and prayers right now, because that's tough. And that's what happens when people share things without verifying things. But just on the other side, then there's legacy media that know something is true and still don't share it. That's the flip side. You got some irresponsible people on social media who see something, it fits the narrative that kind of makes sense in their heads, because it does make sense, but they don't verify it, and they end up sharing a picture of some kid who is not actually responsible. So that's overzealously sharing on the other side. And then on the other side, you've got the CBC, you got CTV, you got Global, you got Post Media. So in there, you got National Post, the Calgary Herald, the Calgary Sun, Edmonton Journal, Edmonton Sun, Vancouver Sun, Times Colonist, Ottawa Citizen, all of these papers, they know it. They see what we're seeing. We've confirmed it. At this point, it's pretty easy for them to confirm it. It's not a wild goose chase. It's not the wild goose chase that we started off last night, working into the wee hours of the morning to do this. It's confirmed. And they could call us, be like, hey, we want to independently confirm this. Could you put us in touch with your sources? And then we would go to our source and say, we won't disclose who you are because, we're protecting your identity, but would you be willing to talk to them? And I'd be willing to do that. This is a public interest journalism story. But they haven't, none of these media have asked us to do that. They haven't even hedged their bets and says, well, according to the Western Standard, this is the shooter. And this is what we know about this shooter. They haven't even done that. Nothing. So they're overzealous in the other way. They know something to be true, and they don't report it. And it's intentional at this point. Oh, we're just waiting. The police say they can't tell us yet because they're notifying next of kin. The shooter murdered his next of kin. And everyone in the town knows. Everyone in the town knows who this person is. Everyone in Tumbler Ridge knows. They intentionally don't want to do this. They don't want to report this. Eventually, the RCMP will grudgingly admit the identity of the shooter, and the media will report it. They'll probably downplay certain statistically relevant facts in that. Most of them will really, really downplay it. Some of them will downplay it mostly, but not as much. There'll be a spectrum here. The mainstream media isn't a hive mind. It kind of is a hive mind, but it's not centralized the way some people think. It's more centralized than others think, but they're different companies, even if they're all kind of operating in a bit of a hive mind. They're going to downplay it, but they will eventually report it when everyone's moved on from this story. I mean, these things have huge shock effect right now. We're all shocked. We're all saddened by what's happened, but I mean, we live in such a fucked up world that we're going to move on from this faster than we should. We're desensitized to it. That's what's going to happen. We're desensitized to this kind of thing. Tragedies happen every day, and they're flash in the pan in the news for a little bit. Most of the time, we move on faster than we should. And maybe I contribute to the problem at the Standard. Like, we're in the news business. We're staying on what are people interested in. If they're no longer interested in something, there's not much incentive to continue covering it. That's one of the really sad realities of this business. And sometimes I'm like a dog with a bone. I'm like, no, this is important, and we're going to really try to make people care about it again. And sometimes we succeed in that. Most of the time, we don't. If people don't care about something, they don't care about something. And we're desensitized to murder because there's just so much of it. So people are going to move on. And more details will come out on this story, but people have moved on. And so, I know our audience is much more engaged than the average person, but, the normies out there, they're probably not going to be reading about this story when we get more details about it in a few weeks. So, yeah. There's so much of this story that's just not being covered. And they know what it is. They know what it is. So, all right. I'm going to put a pin in it there. Thank all of you for watching with us today. We've got the Corey Morgan show is going to come on later. The pipeline after that. We'll be talking more about it. And yeah, we're going to try and talk about some of the other news happening in the world, as less important as that will probably seem today. But continue to follow us for this story on our social media channels at westernstandard.news. We've got a big team of journalists in our Calgary headquarters here. We've got guys in Edmonton. We've got journalists driving into Tumbler Ridge right now. Our BC reporter Jared Yager is working on this story. It's all hands on deck, and we're going to continue to dig into this and provide information that is much more credible than what you're going to get on a lot of the social platforms, but is actually telling the story that is ignored by our legacy mainstream media outlets in Canada. That's it for me. Thank you very much for joining us today, and God bless you.